About 40,000 years ago, somewhere in what's now Europe, two people meet. We don't know their names, we never will, but we know they were both human, and we know they were not the same kind of human. One of them was like us, the other was a Neanderthal. And here's the part that should stop you. We know they met because the meeting is written inside your body, right now, today. I'll come back to that, because to understand why it matters, you have to understand something most people never really think about. For almost the entire time humans have existed, we were never alone. Today, there is exactly one kind of human, Homo sapiens. Us. Every person on Earth, all 8 billion of us, one single species. And we treat that like it's just the natural state of things. Obviously, there's one kind of human. What else would there be? But that's the weird part. That one human world, it's brand new. It's the exception. For most of our story, the planet had several kinds of humans on it at the same time. So let's actually meet them. Start with the Neanderthals. These are the famous ones, and almost everything you think you know about them is wrong. They weren't dumb brutes dragging clubs around. They were skilled. They made tools, controlled fire, hunted huge, dangerous animals, cared for their sick and injured. Their brains were as big as ours, slightly bigger, actually. They survived in Ice Age Europe, and cold that would end you in a single night. Then there are the Denisovans, and these ones are almost a rumor. For years we knew them from basically nothing. A sliver of a finger bone, a couple of teeth, found in one cave in Siberia. An entire kind of human, and we could practically hold what was left of them in one hand. We still don't even have a full skeleton. They are species we know mostly through their DNA, like a voice coming through a wall. And then, my favorite, Homo floresiensis. On one Indonesian island lived a kind of human that stood about 3.5 feet tall. Tiny brains, tiny bodies, making tools and hunting on their own little world. Scientists nicknamed them the hobbits, and they weren't some unimaginably distant ancestor. They were around stunningly late, while modern humans were already out exploring the planet. And there were still others flickering at the edges of what we know, different humans in different corners of the world, all alive in the same chapter. So picture the real situation. There was a stretch of time when, if you walked far enough, you might come over a ridge and see people on the other side who were unmistakably human, making fires, carrying children, and were not your species at all. That was the normal world. Many humans, and we were just one of them. And then that world ended. The Neanderthals, gone. The Denisovans, gone. The hobbits, gone. One by one, every other kind of human disappeared until the planet was left with a single survivor. Us. So the question almost asks itself, out of all of them, why is our branch the one that's still standing? Now, the answer you've probably heard is the simple one. We were smarter. We outcompeted them. We won. Clean story, it's nice and flattering, but the problem is the evidence keeps complicating it. Because, for starters, they didn't all simply lose and die. Remember those two people who met 40,000 years ago? That wasn't a rare event. When our ancestors spread across the world and ran into these other humans, they didn't only fight them or avoid them, they had children with them. This is the part written in your body. If your ancestry traces to anywhere outside Africa, a small slice of your DNA, roughly a couple of percent, came from Neanderthals. Not from something Neanderthal like, from actual Neanderthals, through actual children in an unbroken line down to you. And depending on where your family is from, you might be carrying Denisovan DNA too, that ghost species from the finger bone. In some parts of the world, that inheritance is still doing real work in people's bodies today, helping them handle things like high altitude. So these other humans weren't a separate failed experiment off to the side. Their story and our story braided together. We met them, lived beside them, and mixed with them, which makes the disappearance even harder to explain. If we were close enough to raise families together, why did only one kind of human come out the other end? And the most honest thing I can tell you is that nobody knows for certain. But the leading ideas are worth sitting with because none of them are as simple as we are better. The first one is almost boring, and maybe that's why it's convincing. Numbers. Climate in that area was brutal and unstable. Ice ages crashing in, landscapes transforming. A lot of these other humans lived in small, isolated groups. And the small group is fragile. One harsh stretch, one collapse in the food supply, and a whole population can quietly blink out. We may have simply existed in larger numbers, spread wider, with more room to absorb disaster. The second idea isn't about being smarter, it's about being connected. The evidence suggests our groups traded across long distances, shared tools and techniques, kept loose ties with people far away. Other humans tended to live in tighter, more self-contained pockets. And here's why that matters. If one of our communities was wiped out, the knowledge didn't die with it, because others still had it. A network is so much harder to erase than a scattering of isolated bands. And then there's the version nobody enjoys saying, that it wasn't always peaceful. Two kinds of human, wanting the same valleys, the same animals, the same shelter from the same winter. That's a recipe for conflict, not just romance. Some of those disappearances may not have been gentle, but probably it wasn't any single of these. It was all of them tangled together, playing out over thousands of years. Not one dramatic extinction event, more like a long, slow dimming, population shrinking, groups thinning out, fewer and fewer of those other humans each century, until eventually there just weren't any more. No final battle, no last stand. Just a world that, almost without noticing, became quieter and emptier of the humans kinds that it used to hold. And that's the thing I keep coming back to. We tend to assume we were meant to be here, the main character, the point the whole story was building toward. But that's not really what the evidence shows. It shows we were one option among several, and the others weren't failures. They lived for hundreds of thousands of years, longer in some cases than we've existed. They were good at being human. They just aren't here anymore, and we are. Maybe we earned it. Maybe we got lucky. Maybe, in the end, those aren't even different things. But what we do know is this. There used to be more than one way to be human, a planet that held several, and somehow, all of them, the world narrowed down to a single kind. The strange, quiet fact of your life is that you're living in the aftermath of that. You exist in a one human world that didn't have to turn out that way, and almost didn't. So the next time it strikes you as obvious that there's just one kind of human, that it could only ever have been us, remember that for almost all of human history, that would have sounded absurd. We're not the only humans because we were always going to be. We're the only humans because everyone else ran out of time.